Disclaimer. This video is intended for entertainment purposes only. It is not meant to be taken seriously or as a reflection of reality. Please view this video with discretion. The Cap Cellar Boy and the Old Witch. Once upon a time, in a small village nestled in a dark and mysterious forest, there lived a young cap cellar boy named Oliver. Oliver was a kind and hard-working boy, and he loved to travel from village to village selling his colorful caps. One day, Oliver was traveling through the forest when he came across a strange old hut. The hut was made of gnarled wood and twisted branches, and it was surrounded by a thick patch of thorns. Oliver had never seen anything like it before. Curious, Oliver approached the hut. The door was slightly ajar, so he pushed it open and stepped inside. The hut was dark and dusty, and the air was filled with a strange, musty smell. Oliver peered into the darkness, and his eyes widened in surprise. In the center of the hut sat an old woman. She was hunched over a cauldron, stirring a bubbling potion. The old woman looked up at Oliver with piercing black eyes. "What brings you to my humble abode, young boy?" she asked in a raspy voice. Oliver swallowed hard. "I was just passing through the forest," he said. "I saw your hut and decided to stop and say hello." The old woman smiled crookedly. "Well, you're welcome here, child," she said. "Please, have a seat." Oliver sat down on a rough wooden bench. The old woman continued to stir her potion, and the air in the hut grew thicker with the musty smell. "What are you making?" Oliver asked. The old woman chuckled. "A little something for my supper," she said, "but enough about me. What brings you to these parts?" Oliver told the old woman about his travels as a cap cellar boy. She listened intently, nodding her head from time to time. "You seem like a kind and honest boy," she said when Oliver was finished. "How would you like to earn a little extra money?" Oliver's eyes widened. "How?" he asked. The old woman smiled again. "I need someone to run an errand for me," she said. "It's a simple task, but it's important. If you complete it to my satisfaction, I will reward you handsomely." Oliver was intrigued. "What is the errand?" he asked. The old woman reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, black pouch. She handed it to Oliver. "Take this pouch," she said. "Inside you will find a single black cap. I need you to take this cap to the top of the tallest mountain in the forest and leave it there as an offering to the spirits." Oliver hesitated. He had heard stories about the spirits of the forest, and they were said to be dangerous creatures. But the old woman's offer was too tempting to resist. "I'll do it," he said. The old woman smiled. "Good," she said. "Now, be careful. The forest is full of dangers. But if you follow my instructions, you will be safe." Oliver took the pouch and stood up. "Thank you," he said. "I won't let you down." Oliver turned and left the hut. He stepped out into the sunlight and took a deep breath. The forest was eerily quiet, and he could feel the eyes of the spirits watching him. Oliver squared his shoulders and began to walk. He had a task to complete, and he was determined to see it through. Oliver walked for hours, following the winding path through the forest. The trees grew taller and taller, and the shadows grew longer and longer. Oliver could feel the presence of the spirits all around him. He could hear their whispers in the trees and see their movements in the shadows. But Oliver remembered the old woman's instructions. He kept his head down and kept walking. Finally, Oliver reached the top of the tallest mountain in the forest. He stood at the edge of a cliff and looked down at the village below. Oliver took a deep breath and reached into the pouch. He pulled out the black cap and held it up to the sky. "I offer this cap to the spirits of the forest," he said. "Please accept it as a sign of my respect." Oliver placed the cap on the ground and bowed his head. He stood there for a moment, waiting for a sign from the spirits. But nothing happened. Oliver stood up and looked around. The forest was silent, and the wind had died down. Oliver frowned. He had thought the spirits would be more impressed by his offering. Oliver turned to leave, but then he heard a noise behind him. He turned around and saw a shadow moving in the trees. Oliver's heart began to race. He knew the spirits were there, and he was afraid of what they might do. The shadow stepped out of the trees and into the moonlight. It was the old woman from the hut. The old woman smiled at Oliver. "You have done well, child," she said. "The spirits are pleased with your offering." Oliver breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank you," he said. The old woman reached out and touched Oliver's forehead. "You are a brave and kind boy," she said. "May the spirits always be with you." The old woman turned and disappeared into the shadows. Oliver watched her go. Then he turned and walked back down the mountain. He was glad that the task was over, and he was eager to return to the village. Oliver arrived back in the village late that night. He was tired and hungry, but he was also relieved that the task was over. Oliver went home and went to bed. He dreamed of the old woman and the spirits of the forest. The next morning, Oliver woke up early. He went to the market to sell his caps, but he couldn't stop thinking about the old woman and her reward. Oliver decided to go back to the hut in the forest. He wanted to see the old woman and thank her again for her generosity. Oliver walked through the forest for hours, until he reached the clearing where the hut stood. He knocked on the door, but no one answered. Oliver pushed the door open and stepped inside. The hut was empty. Oliver looked around, but there was no sign of the old woman. He called out her name, but no one answered. Oliver was disappointed. He had hoped to thank the old woman for her reward, but she was nowhere to be found. Oliver turned to leave, but then he noticed something on the floor. It was the black cap that he had left as an offering to the spirits. Oliver picked up the cap and examined it. It was still in perfect condition. Oliver put the cap in his pocket and left the hut. He walked back through the forest, wondering where the old woman had gone. When Oliver arrived back in the village, he went straight to the market. He set up his stall and began to sell his caps. Oliver had a good day at the market. He sold all of his caps, and he made a lot of money. Oliver was grateful for the old woman's reward. He knew that it would help him to buy more caps and travel to more villages. Oliver continued to sell his caps for many years. He traveled all over the kingdom, and he became known as the best cap seller in the land. Oliver never forgot the old woman and the spirits of the forest. He always kept the black cap with him, as a reminder of their kindness. Thank you to all of you viewers on the World's Nature YouTube channel for watching this story. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked this story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the World's Nature channel. Your likes and subscriptions help us to create more great content for you. Take care and goodbye.